And we are live. Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to this live stream, aka Paranormal Fireside Chat, presented to you by Paranormal Pop Culture, aka also the way that I am maintaining sanity in these isolation times. For those of you that have been around for these things, we've had a lot of great conversations with folks talking about their paranormal stories, their paranormal theories. We've talked a lot about, what do they think about ghost stories in a time of isolation? Are the ghosts still haunting? Are they hanging out here? Are the ghosts getting annoyed by all the living that's sticking around at home that they're not used to? All sorts of interesting questions like that. And as the chat room fills up, I'm going to call out some of you guys and I'm going to take your questions. And I think this is going to be a fun time. Let me just say hi to a couple of people that are in the chat room. Dory is here. Hey, Dory, good to see you again. And Jack is here, my loyal buddy Jack. Hey, Jack, thanks for tuning in once more. And so a little background before I bring these guys in. We actually haven't met in person. We've had some phone conversations, and what led me to them is that they run a very awesome trolley tour in New York City, in Brooklyn in particular. And I went on it because even though I work in the paranormal world, I'm also a paranormal nerd, and I love going on ghost tours everywhere. Every town I travel to, if I have the ability, I like to hop into a ghost tour. So I was fortunate to join their tour and had such a great time and really enjoyed the history and the stories that they told right in my backyard that I really wanted to make friends with them. I wanted friends and wanted to find some opportunities to work with them. And the sad bit is we were supposed to have a event at the Dromedary Urban Tiki Bar in Brooklyn. And because of all this gestures wildly, we couldn't do that, obviously. It was supposed to happen on Good Friday. That didn't happen. So instead, I'm kind of bringing part of the talk here for you guys, which is, I guess, cool for you, because if you couldn't make it to Brooklyn, you're getting the best show in the house, or best seat in the house right now for the show. So I think this is going to be a fun little talk. So without further ado, let me go ahead and bring in our guests for the night. And I'm going to show their, that's the Madame Morbid's Trolley Tours. That's their logo. And let me bring them into the video stream. Oh. And we have, hey, got Allison Huntington right with us tonight. And also Matt Zoller. Did I say it right that time?
Close enough.
Do you know how to pronounce your last name? Matt Zoller. Matt Zoller. Everyone's
Zoller.
It's a hard last name.
It's not a hard last name, but it's one of those names that if I get it wrong once, I'm going to get it wrong a million times afterwards.
There's a way to remember it. Wanna be a Zoller, Matt Zoller. Da 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 da. Remember that song?
No.
Okay, well,
I think you just made it up.
I think a lot of people know what I'm talking about, and they're grimacing right now because it's a terrible song. But it is a good way to remember the name.
Well, yeah, now we'll
remember my name.
Zoller.
Yes.
Zoller.
See, there you go. Now I remember it because of the musical reference. Thank you guys for joining in. First off, where are you guys right now? Actually, no, before I get to that, the more important part maybe to start with is, what are you drinking? What libations do you have with you tonight?
Miller High Life.
All right, classy, keeping it classy.
Of course.
I'm drinking just a nondescript red wine. I actually could find out what it is, but I know that it's a 2013, which makes me seem fancy, but it's not an expensive bottle of wine.
That is very fancy. Well, as I mentioned in the intro, we were supposed to be doing this at the Dromedary Tiki Bar. So since we couldn't do that, I decided to make a tiki drink. This is a Singapore sling. which is not a Victorian era drink, but it's like 1920s, so it's at least old. So we're pushing back in time. But cheers to you guys.
Cheers. That was Matt's dad's favorite drink.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah.
That's funny you remember that.
It's a good drink.
Remember we ordered it at that bar?
Yeah.
So that's how I know. I have a good memory.
That was a great story.
I don't remember that bar. I don't remember, but
well, no one was. Yeah. Anyway,
I vaguely remember it. We also single-pour slings are very strong drinks, my friend.
It's like an ounce of gin, an ounce of cherry liqueur, and then lime juice and some club soda. So yeah, it's not as potent as a zombie, but it's an older drink. And the reason that I kind of came around to loving it after not really caring for it for a long time was I was actually on the Queen Mary in California, docked in California, and I was doing some ghosty work there, and I ordered it randomly, and I happened to really enjoy it. So it kind of won me over after not really caring for it before. So, I guess full circle, ghost to tiki to ghost. But where are you guys right now? Where are you kind of hunkering down?
So I spent a month at Connecticut at the shore with my family. And today I just arrived in Orange, Massachusetts at a fishing cottage where I'm going to be quarantining for the next 2 weeks. Responsibility. It's not. It's designed by a former HGTV host, so it's really kitschy and cute. But I think it's like a brand new-ish. The basement, I can take you on a tour later, is a game room, and they have this train set. It's insane.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
You're really maximizing this quarantine situation.
I mean, my building is just crazy in Brooklyn. We have a lot of positive cases, and I left like immediately, like early March. So, and I don't plan on going back until at least June 1st. And it's when we can, resume trolley tours.
The tours. We look forward to that. And just to get a weigh in from everybody else out there, Andrew's drinking green tea, which is good.
Cheers.
And Stacy's got a pina colada. Good. I like pina coladas and dancing in the rain. But I'm also not into health food, which is a terrible song, by the way, about terrible people. Jack is just shouting out some people that were in the room, and Melissa's got water. So it's all very exciting. And then Sprite Zero. Jack's got Sprite Zero. Matt, where are you hunkering down?
I'm in South Slope, Brooklyn, in my apartment, and I have been here the whole time. And I'm going a little stir crazy. But
now it's Gowanus.
What's that? Well, it's like South Slope, Gowanus border area. It depends on who asks, I guess.
Yeah. Well, same with you, brother. I've been hunkering down since the beginning of March, and yeah, it is sort of like the Overlook Hotel at 500 square feet. It gets a little bit cozy.
Later on, I'm going to tell you a ghost story that took place 2 years exactly today at the Shining Hotel, the Overlook, which is really the Stanley Hotel.
Yeah.
Tie-in. Yeah, it's going to be.
That's your ghost story for the night?
The personal ghost story, but we have Brooklyn ghost stories as well.
Well, that's a good segue. So, Allison, are you originally from out west, or where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Connecticut, and then I went to New York when I was 18, and then I went to School of Visual Arts, which Matt's dad also went to, and I never left, but thinking about it, I mean, state maybe, I don't know.
That sounds like some Madame Morbid business we should not be covering right here on this live stream.
Well, Morbid is never going to die, ironically. But yeah, I can't wait to reopen. It's it's nerve-wracking not knowing when to reopen, and since it's, you know, a tiny space, we were quick to close. We closed like a week or a couple days before they even made it a necessity, just because we didn't want people to feel uncomfortable. We didn't want to put our tour guides in a situation that they wouldn't want to be in.
My brother is an epidemiologist and runs the School of Public Health at a big state university, and he was just like basically like making me paranoid before the media made me paranoid. He was like, "Yeah, you guys should like take extra precaution."
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, but like the president isn't saying that, and he's like, don't listen to him. I'm like, well, I don't, but, and then like 2 days later, it's like, okay, things are going to shut down. So we shut down pretty early. At least, your Allie's right, a few days before everybody else. But
well, you guys were being responsible ghost tour operators, and you can't do the tours without the ghosts. So, Allison, you were setting this up, but I'm curious about how you became fascinated with the paranormal, and also tell me sort of the catalyst, the ghost story for you that really kind of sparked it.
Well, okay, so it's funny. My parents just sent me this drawing I did when I was 6, and it's me as a ghost, and there's blood coming out of my eyes, nose, and mouth. I have no idea why the principal wasn't called, but
we could have shared that. 90s. I didn't know you were talking about that. That's funny though.
Yeah.
Cut to that right now because it's really a funny drawing.
It's really crazy. I've just always been obsessed with ghosts since I was like 5. My dad had his own haunted house he did for many years, and it's just kind of like it was a part of the Chase family, you know, tradition. And we were so fascinated with the concept of ghosts and all things morbid, but we weren't necessarily believers in ghosts. And just like you said earlier, Matt and I traveled the world going to different ghost tours. The very first thing I do when I go to different cities is just look up the ghost tour and base kind of my trip around that. So we did a lot of that. And then, you know, we've been to the most haunted places in the world, not the Queen Mary, which I'm dying to go to, no pun intended. But I think I had my first true ghost encounter 2 years ago today. So do you want me to tell that story right now?
Yeah, okay. That story.
Okay, so it's my birthday. And 2 years ago when I was turning 31, I went to the Stanley Hotel, which is what The Shining is based on, the Overlook. And the Titanic also sunk on my birthday. So they were doing this tribute dinner, which was a replica dinner of the last night on board the Titanic for the first class. It was like 17 courses, disgusting food. Like I went back and ate Pringles and Cheese Whiz, but because they had just like discovered like gelatin in 1912-ish around there. So like all the dishes were like plain flavored gelatin cubes with like bone marrow sauce. It was really gross. Anyways, the next day we took a ghost tour of the facility, and we went into this specific room, and they were like, there's 3 active ghost children in this room, and they give us all these dum-dum lollipops to put in our hand to like entice them to make contact with us. So the tour guide was like, oh, it's her birthday, ghosts go to her. So she shut the lights off and she was like, ghost children flock to Allison. I swear on my life, it felt like a child crawled into my lap. It's on video. Like I screamed, I went crazy, and they turned the lights on, and I thought somebody had just, you know, been messing with me. But everyone was completely spread out. I mean, I'm telling you, I felt the weight of a child crawl into my lap. And ever since then, it's harder to deny ghost experiences. So I did have a Stanley Hotel ghost encounter.
Yeah, the Stanley is a great location. I've been there multiple times, and one of my favorite parts about it is, Matt, have you been out there by any chance, the Stanley Hotel?
I have not been to the Stanley Hotel, and I want to someday, but I haven't been.
It's a great location, and as far as like supposedly haunted locations, it's always nice when you can actually stay in a comfortable bed. But I stayed there multiple times, and occasionally would be stuck in the same room, not stuck, but placed in the same room because I was there for an event or it was a speaker's room or whatever. And more than once, I had a situation where I would wake up in the middle of the night and hear something sort of pacing around my bed. And it happened on multiple occasions, but it just got funny where it was just like, okay, could you stop now? Because I'm trying to sleep. But it was definitely kind of cool. But that's definitely a good creepy story. And Matt, let me throw it to you actually. Let me get you guys both on the screen. Matt, what's the story that well, how'd you get into all this? And then what's your personal ghost story?
Well, Allie and I were hanging out one day. Actually, was like hanging out at her place, and she was like, "Don't you think we should?" Or like, I'm thinking of starting a ghost tour in Brooklyn, and I was like, "That's a brilliant idea." So I was just like, "Can I help?" And that's basically how I got started. Um, I don't, I believe in the spirit world a lot. I don't know that I believe in like the Hollywood trope of ghosts, but I definitely believe that there are a lot of manifestations of like the spirit world that I just don't know that we can fully sense, but sometimes perhaps we can. Um, and just to go back, because I never answered, my family's from Brooklyn, but I was born and raised in Oklahoma. And in Oklahoma, there's like a lot of just open spaces, and at night it's pitch black, and it's like kind of I mean, if you've been in the Great Plains in the middle of the night on like a cold fall night, it's eerie. I mean, it's eerily silent. There's no activity except for maybe like coyotes and raccoons. I mean, I don't know. So there were a lot of times when I was younger where there would be close, like kind of close encounter type stuff. And in Oklahoma, was once Native America. There's uh, a lot of belief in the spirit world in the large population of Native Americans that lived there. And some of my friends growing up, would just constantly, see an animal or a symbol, and they would be like, "Oh, it's like a relative," or like, "That means this to them," and I'm just like, "Okay." But I have never like had an encounter like Ali has had. That sort of a ghost sat in my lap, but I have definitely felt like I'm communicating with people that aren't here. I've had experiences like that before. And I've definitely met some really interesting over the years. I directed a show once. I won't name it just for privacy, but the I was going in to set up the shot. There was our subject who was going to get like like just a chakra healing session, and when the healer came in, it was just me and the sound guy and a producer and another guy. We were all sitting in the like figuring out where to put the cameras and where to put the lights. And the medium was there, and he was like, after like a couple minutes of us hanging out, he was just like, "I'm sorry, can we clear the room?" And I was just like, in kind of director mode, I was like, "No, we got to get the shot. Like, we got 8 hours to shoot this whole episode." And he was like, "No, no, no, I need to clear the room. I need just the sound guy." He didn't even know his name. "I need the sound guy to stay with me." And I was like, "Okay," like 5 minutes. And then we step out, like I let 10 minutes go by, come back in, and it's just the sound guy who's like, he's like a guy in his early 40s or something. He's never been very emotional on set. He's always been super professional. He's sitting in there, full grown man. He's just bawling. He's crying, and the medium is consoling him. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, is everything okay?" And everything was okay, but we just kind of played it off. He's like, "It's fine. Like, just give us a couple minutes, and then we'll get started." And I just like kind of forgot about it for the rest of the day. And at the end of the day, we're breaking down the set, and I'm like, do you mind if I ask you what was going on this morning when we were setting up the shot? And he's like, yeah, not at all. It's kind of a personal thing. But basically, when I was like setting up the mic, he felt something, and he was like, when we were alone, he came up and asked me, he was like, hey, are your parents still with you? And he was like, no, my parents passed when I was like 13. And the medium was like, because they're in the room right now, and they want to tell you like everything's okay. And I mean, it was just like such a bizarre moment that this medium felt the presence of some random guy he had just met 2 minutes ago's parents being in the room, and knew that they had passed and that they're sort of traveling with him.
Yeah.
And it was just incredible. I was like, he said some other stuff too throughout the day, even to me, where I was just like, okay, like there's something else. And ever since then, I've been very open to all kinds of different manifestations of the spirit world. But that particular instance really made me explore more.
Yeah. Yeah, that's certainly intense. And, I want to kind of bring it into the now. Just a couple comments from folks.
I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you not hear me? How about now? Audio back?
I can't hear you. Sorry.
Ooh, that's not good.
I can hear you.
You can hear me?
Oh,
I can hear both of you.
Okay.
I couldn't hear you, what you were saying the last minute. Could everybody hear my story?
Yeah, we can all hear your story.
Oh.
However, if you can lean into the mic a little bit, or if you can turn up your settings, you're just a little bit low, but so just lean in if possible. But just a couple questions from people that have heard your stories as they're coming through here. Stacey Eldridge wants to know, her house was half blocked down to the Basilica Regina Pacis in Bensonhurst area. Always gave her the creeps every time she walks by. Any ghost stories around there that you know of?
Huh. I don't. Matt, do you? See, the thing is, we pretty much just concentrated on our route. So outside of the route, we kind of neglected to further study
It's a lot of history. A lot of history to cover.
The biggest, it would be the fourth largest city in the United States if it was still a city. I mean, I think the best ghost stories are, in those outer locations, like Coney Island. Brownsville has a huge history. Even I wish we could make it to Ditmas Park. That Matt has a ghost story there.
Yeah, I could hear Aaron's question, though. I could hear you, Allie. Sorry about the technical difficulty, but
Bensonhurst. Do you know ghost stories with Bensonhurst?
Well, there's a couple there is an old, I don't have it ready for prime time, the Bensonhurst story. But there's everything, like in South Brooklyn, there are a ton of old hotels. There's two in Coney Island, one that's not there anymore.
Yeah.
That has a lot of haunted stories. It's really fascinating. Like we went back, and the whole old like Brooklyn Daily Eagle, or the Brooklyn Eagle, is all digitized, and it's in the library. And it's funny, when you go back, you can actually go to the library and look at all the articles from like the 1870s and stuff. And it's fascinating because before like modern science, specters, ghosts, vampires, like werewolves, these things were reported. They'd be like front page daily news stuff.
Yeah.
So like when the hotels, especially the two Coney Island hotels, it was news. It was like the ghost has shown itself again. This would be like, could you imagine like the front page of the New York Times?
Yeah, well,
I mean, about a ghost.
I used to work for the Chicago Tribune Company, and I was able to see some archives, and then ended up looking at a lot of other newspapers. And hopefully, you can hear me now, Matt. He's not responding. So,
can you hear?
No,
still can't.
I can't hear him. I can hear you, Allie.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead and say, and you can. Oh, it's okay. Just that I did certainly see newspaper clippings about ghosts, such as a postman that continued on his rounds after death. So the newspapers used to cover that kind of thing. So before I get ahead of myself too much, I do want to just like bring up a picture of this bad boy. So that's actually the trolley. That's the trolley right there. What is the story with the Madame Morbid trolley? Obviously, you guys cover a lot of ground in this tour, but how did the trolley come into being or come into play for this? And how old is that thing?
It is about 3 years old now. What?
I thought you were going to be funny and say like it's 82 years old.
No, I'm honest. So all right. So when I first thought to do a mobile tour, I was like thinking of getting like a tiny school bus, real cheap. And then my friend said, think bigger. I found this trolley company. So we built it from a Ford chassis. And then it's a replica turn of the century trolley. It's the smallest one that was available. There are a lot of street regulations in New York. But we basically got the shell of a trolley and then we took it to Queens and designed the interior. So we got like this boat leather to make tufted replica Model T cushions.
Shout out to McCoy's Upholstery.
Shout out to McCoy's Upholstery. They're amazing. I think they did like Bill de Blasio's office or something.
They do a lot of police cars too.
Police cars.
We'd show up there with the trolley and there'd be like a bunch of cop cars. We'd be like, oh shit. What's going on?
I don't know if there's swearing allowed, so
it's totally allowed. We have alcohol, so
shit.
Swearing and alcohol go so well together.
Good. Look what I can do. Anyways, we both designed the interior. It was completely like hands-on. My dad did all the electric. The chandeliers we got, I had to like individually put on each little crystal. It was months of basically turning a box into a
mobile funeral
parlor.
Here's a shot. You can see the chandeliers a little bit in this shot.
Yeah.
And which is a great ghosty, spooky looking promo shot that you guys have there.
Yeah.
So you can see the chandeliers in that shot, but now with the tour itself, and I'm sorry, did you have more to say about the trolley?
No, we call it Esmeralda because when my dad had a haunted house, people would line up for hours, so he wanted to entertain them. So he had like live animals, like scorpions, and he had this huge alligator named Esmeralda. So it's in honor of her. Did you know that, Matt?
I did not know the alligator story. No.
That's where we got the name Esmeralda. Also, Ryan Gosling named his daughter Esmeralda. Copycat.
Right. So let's go with the your dad's story as opposed to the Ryan Gosling story. It's a little bit more rich, I guess. And it's a good name for a trolley. And what would you say is the overall, and by the way, Ashley says you did a great job with the trolley. So and Chad saying that's amazing.
Thank you, Chad.
Stacy, so cool. Oh, Jack saying he digs it. Look, all the love for Esmeralda.
So nice. Well, we don't get a big ego, so
she's. And Andrea says it looks vintage, which is, I think, the best compliment, right?
That's great. It looks vintage, smells new.
Smells new. That's a good.
And it has new air conditioning in it. So this summer, when we open back up, folks, we will keep the trolley cool.
Yeah, that was not a problem when I was on it in January or whatever. It was not cold though on there either. It was actually nicely regulated.
Yeah.
So, before we run out of time, obviously we want some ghost stories. As I mentioned, you guys do a really nice job on the tour of combining history, documented history. You've done a lot of research on so many of the stories that you tell, and then you couple it with the sort of the paranormal stories. And that's really my favorite kind of ghost tour, that you learn something, you really pick up like the rich like local history, and then you're not force feeding the idea of a paranormal story, but you're kind of saying this is what's been reported. I love that. That's my jam.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. That's really kind of you to say. Appreciate it.
So,
yeah. Oh, sorry. Go.
Oh no, go. Yeah.
Oh well, like okay. So we see a big pattern with even just us taking ghost tours in the past and having our own. It's usually a girlfriend or a boyfriend dragging their significant other, and they're a huge believer, but their partner isn't.
Mm-hmm.
So this way, it's like you're still learning history that happened. Like it's not like, you know, hearsay. So we love winning people over who are like, I was dragged here, but I had such a good time because, you know, truth and then, you know, suspicion. It's a nice little combination. And we try to be as scientific as possible about it. I mean, you know, like we also like talk about the history of debunking ghost types. I don't know. I think you had Amanda as your tour guide. So we'll say like the different categories of ghosts and what they like. For instance, poltergeist is an original term, some say, for PMS. So we'll, you know,
yeah, there's a lot of theories.
We zhuzhed it up.
What's that?
Yeah. He says we zhuzh it up.
We zhuzhed it up. We zhuzhed it up with some extra.
But we're also not like ghosts exist. It's like these are the facts that we've learned.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we read, like, I have honestly a folder at the main Brooklyn Public Library that is ghost stories. Like, they gave me my own little folder, which is incredible for that they did that. But we looked at everything and we tried to only include stories that we found multiple sources on. So while ghost stories are often lore, they withstand the test of time because if a lot of people know about them. And so we tried to pick. I mean, there's a ton of stories. There are also just a lot of like kind of made up things, like, you know, the Brooklyn Public Library kind of did a whole. I guess.
Yeah, tell them that story, Agatha Cunningham.
Well, so here's like what we found a lot. I guess, but this isn't what I wanted to tell. But 1976, was that the year? Agatha, there was a school
70s, maybe 73. I don't know.
There was a school like field trip at the Brooklyn Public Library, and this little girl, I think she was about 8 years old, got lost in the stacks, and her name was Agatha Cunningham. And about like 10 years ago, it came out. The New York Times actually did a piece where they resurfaced. They announced they were going to start to like look for her again, like as if she's been in the library for the last 40 years, just eating pages and
still going through the Beverly Cleary section. Yeah,
he actually is the old ghost lady from Ghostbusters.
Exactly.
Aged as in ghost form, which is probably very insensitive of me because it's a missing young girl. But sorry.
Or she turned into Slimer.
Yeah,
just like surviving off New York City hot dogs in front of them and from Grand. Anyway, so the girl went missing. They never found her. I think a lot of people assumed that she left the library, but 10 years ago they reopened the investigation at the library and they like called in some of the like prominent paranormal experts to do a ghost hunt, and there was a documentary or a ghost investigation. There was a documentarian there to capture it all, and they did an overnight where they essentially tried to call out Agatha and like deep down in the stacks, which, by the way, the Brooklyn Public Library is the largest one of the largest in the city, and it's 5 stories deep. A lot of people don't know that one.
One of the largest in the country too. Matt, you take a long time to tell a story. Can I finish it?
I'm getting there. Right, getting right. You always interrupt me right at the punchline.
I should interject that normally when they're on the trolley or doing the tours or have their tour guides doing it, we're also not hanging out in isolation and drinking. This is like our social interaction right now. So
we're drinking always on the tours.
Yeah, actually, I noticed a little bit of paranormal activity in Allison's frame that somehow the beer just disappeared and then reappeared. I don't know how that happened. Sorry, I cut you off, Matt. Like,
all right, Matt, Come on, tell a story.
Under quarantine, I like to call it paranoia activity because I
like
haven't left. The only person I talk to is my girlfriend. So they conducted this investigation. They went overnight and they claimed to have found some they got some stuff on the EVP reading, and they heard some voices and they captured some sounds, and they made this documentary and released it on YouTube, and a bunch of went viral. The New York Times did a story about it, and then 2 weeks later there was an announcement made by the Brooklyn some PR person that was running communications for the Brooklyn Public Library, and said that the story was a hoax and they made it up to try to garner interest and to increase membership. And I'm just like, library books, first of all, are free. Why do you need to market going to the library? It's just a very funny thing. So we found stuff like that, and we opted to leave stuff like that out, but I'm telling it to you here. If you want to hear real ghost stories, you got to come on our tour.
In Matt's department, and he'll tell you. Yeah, no.
Well, I was going to tell a real.
What?
I'm done. I'm done. I'm gonna hand it off to you. But if there's time, I will tell my real story. I wasn't gonna. But
okay.
Ollie's got a good one.
Allison. Well, and actually, yes. We'll get to some of these questions in a minute. So actually, yeah, I want to hear Allie's tour for this. I'm gonna pass this off to you. Make it a good spooky one, or make it whatever one you want. But Allison, you're off to the races.
To tell about a Brooklyn ghost tour. A story.
Yeah, tell us a story.
All right. Well, Matt and I we're launching a little tiny podcast while in quarantine about kind of similar people who are quarantined in a haunted house and what the ghost activity is like. Because it's interesting because, ghosts usually get a break during the day. And so we want to talk to people about how it's changed, kind of like how you were saying before, the levels of activity. Anyways,
let's promote. Let's actually ask everybody if people do want to tell their ghost stories. They should reach out to us. So not to
go at Madame Morbid.
This here.
Yeah.
But just send an email. I'm either Matt or Allison at madamomorbid.com.
Or info at madamomorbid.com.
Or info at madamomorbid.com. Well, I gave her both. It's pretty obvious what our emails would be anyway. Anyway, if you have a ghost story in quarantine, please send us an email and we'll reach out to you. Anyway, back to you, Allison.
So my story takes place in Prospect Park on the border of it. And it's 123 on the park. This is an apartment complex. Now, it used to be Caledonian Hospital that ran for about 100 years. And then after it closed down, it was temporarily used as a shooting set for SUV or SVU. I don't know.
SVU, Special Victims Unit. Force Utility.
I went to SVA and my mom still says she went to SUV. Anyways, so they turned it into an apartment complex called 123 on the park. Really cute apartments. Very kind of cottage-like where I am right now. The walls are kind of like that. But so before Madame Morbid, I dabbled in every career possible, one of which was real estate. And I knew the history of the building. And I always felt torn whether I should tell people that it was a hospital when I showed it to them. And finally I was I'm just going to tell this really nice guy who is coming from medical school. Oh, wait, I just ruined the punchline. I was like, it's a hospital. He's like, that's okay. I'm in medical school. Well, that was ruined. But I'll tell you the history of the building. So when it first opened up as an apartment complex, doormen, it had the highest turnover rate of doormen because they were convinced it was haunted. They spoke with the New York Post. They said that one particular night, a doorman was watching through the video cameras in the stairwell, and the motion sensor lights went off starting on the 7th floor all the way down. What was formerly the morgue is now the gym, which people use as an excuse not to work out. And they actually tried to get a rent in their a rent cut to based on the ghosts. They claimed that there were strange smells, cabinets were opening and closing, eerie feelings. But they decided at the end of the day, this is New York, and apartments are sparse, so they did not get a rent cut. And it's interesting because a haunted house can actually bring notoriety and make it more popular. The only legally haunted house in America is in Nyack, New York, and the price tripled when it was legally announced to be haunted. So there are positive sides to owning a spooky place, but that building is pretty notorious for being haunted.
So Erin Mitchell is in the room, and I know she lives in New York, and her question is, what year did this take place?
Which part of the story? Sorry, Erin.
So when was it a hospital?
Oh, okay. So it was a hospital for about 100 years in the 1800s. And the apartment building, again, what's now called 123 on the Park, it's about like maybe 10, maybe less years old, less than 10 years old. I mean, it's a beautiful location.
When were you giving tours of it?
Right before I started Madame Morbid. So let's say like 4 or 5 years ago, I told everyone in my office, was like, I'm quitting real estate and starting ghost tour. And they're like, good luck with that. And look at me now.
You forgot the best part of the story, which is the morgue is in the basement, which is now a gym.
I did say that. Pay attention, Matt.
Oh.
No.
Did you make your Soul Cycle joke?
Oh, no, I didn't. I forgot about that.
Okay. We're much better on the trolley.
You asked before we started filming how we met each other. So Matt's my ex-boyfriend. So we dated for a couple years, and then we broke up. This is like 10 years ago. So we broke up, and then a couple years later, he was in my neighborhood and he needed to use the bathroom. And so while he was using my bathroom in my apartment, that's when I told him I was going to start a ghost tour, and he's like, "Can I do it?" And I was like, "Sure."
I think that might be the weirdest paranormal element of this, is that you're texting your ex after you've broken up to use their toilet. But
long after we broke up, so we're much better friends.
We hung up. Well,
toilet friends. Like,
we broke up, and then she moved a block away from me. So
then I what?
You moved a block. Then she moved a block away.
Oh yeah, so we broke up, and
we saw each other.
Block. It was not like creepy. Like once we broke up, we were broken up. It's not like this. Did it just get awkward?
I think it did just a little bit, but that's okay. We're here for it. People in the chat room like it. Ashley says it keeps getting better. So and then, Jack says he needs friends like this, because everyone needs a friend that if you have to go to the bathroom and you know where they live, especially in New York, where strategic bathroom going is necessary. It's important.
Well, let me tell you, as someone that drives the trolley a couple times a week, if we do like 3 tours in a row, I have made friends in weird places in Brooklyn. I have relationships at like
Greenpoint McDonald's,
coffee shops.
Stacy says Allison is very entertaining, really entertaining.
Oh my God, Stacy, that's so nice. All right.
Okay, Matt. Before we run down on time, give me your tale. I'm gonna throw you the frame.
Oh well, I thought my tale was going to be Brooklyn Public Library, but I guess I could talk about Litchfield Villa, which we talk about a little bit on the tour. But Litchfield Villa is an old mansion that exists. It's in Prospect Park on Prospect Park West. You may have seen it if you're a Brooklyner or a New Yorker and you've gone to Prospect Park. It was built in 1857, but in 1864, during the time spiritualism was like at its peak and the Civil War was going on, and a lot of people were conducting seances. Margaret Cahill, who was a well-to-do society woman at the time, wanted to conduct a seance to communicate with her son, who passed in a battle in the Civil War. And so they got together, had a seance, and something went terribly wrong, reportedly, in the seance. And there's a few different accounts of what happened. One person claimed that someone at the seance was possessed by a demon. Another said that the seance was done incorrectly and that the practitioner of the seance, the spiritualist, opened a portal to the demon world. And then and other people said that the seance was a success, but that her son was in hell, and that created a connection to the demon world. Anyway, things like went crazy during the seance itself. Like the table was vibrating, candles went out, the people on the street claimed to see gargoyles with glowing green eyes in the window. But the takeaway was that the seance was a success, and she was able to communicate with her son. And many other seances were held at Litchfield Villa. But the crazy thing about that one is that everybody who was at that seance, including Margaret Cahill, died within a year of the seance. So the story got out, and everybody then became terrified of Litchfield Villa. And a few years later, when Prospect Park was commissioned, local landowners were donating their land to the park to create the park that Olmsted was designing. And a lot of like the houses got razed, but a lot of it was farmland. But they kept Litchfield Villa, which is kind of funny considering it was so notoriously haunted. It became a national registered historic place in 1977.
But now it's like a Parks and Rec office.
Yeah.
People still try to do seances there.
I happen to love that story. It's one of my favorite ghost stories of New York, and specifically of Brooklyn. And and I also am just like a big student of spiritualism. I mean, I don't study it, but of that era in history, and also the seances and everything that took place. Actually, I have to say, shameless plug, I discussed the Villa Litchfield, or Litchfield Villa, at on my podcast, which I started during this isolation quarantine time.
That's
the
awesome.
Nick America podcast. Maybe we should trade links and all that, and promote one another. But no, that's certainly a great story. And like, I mean, as far as when you guys get rolling again, I mean, I know you certainly have the website, and what are some of the other ways that people can reach out to you to just keep an eye on when you're back rolling, back in business?
So Instagram's always great. We have the most fun. We always follow back when people follow us, and we have the most entertaining followers and people we follow. We just love what they post. It's very fresh take, always more.
At Madame Morbid NYC is our handle, because some crazy punk ass has at Madame Morbid, and we like.
You wouldn't respond to our messages.
We threatened her for like a year and a half.
We did not threaten her at all. We just sent her a message. Hey, can we have your handle? She had one photo.
Nothing is more frustrating than reaching out to someone like 700 times. But I think it's just a dedication.
Once.
No, we tried like a few times. Maybe 4 times.
Anyways, also we have a newsletter that you can sign up for on our website. Matt creates it. It's hilarious. We list like the morbid book of the month, something scary to watch. Have you seen Invisible Man yet?
I have, yes.
Did you like it?
I did, actually. I mean, like, I'm a fan of the Universal monster movies, but wasn't quite the same, and that's okay. Things change.
Wrapped up very quickly, but I am a huge Elizabeth Moss fan, so she can do no wrong. Tomorrow I'm watching The Hunt. Does that count as a horror movie? Yeah. Well, yeah, satire.
You got it. Yeah. I love how you just say it like it's like your quarantine schedule. Like tomorrow I've got a 3
It is. Tomorrow's my birthday. I'm going to eat spaghetti and watch The Hunt.
Tomorrow is your birthday. You're going to watch The Hunt. You're going to... well, apparently Ashley says it was so good, unless she was referring to Invisible Man. So...
Invisible Man was okay.
You're turning the year of the most famous ghost of all time.
What? Jesus. 33. Yes, that's right. Another ghost,
Did you
yeah.
say Jesus?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mumbled it because I was like, should I be saying this?
No, you can say it, but I think he would technically, if you're going to classify him by any paranormal character, it'd probably be zombie more than ghost. So, and then.
Oh, did you see all those memes like "Guess Jesus is gonna stay dead this year"? Canceled. I actually went to the place in Israel where he was. Matt and I are both half Jewish, half Christian, so we're kind of shaky on history, biblical history. Anyways, I took pictures there. There were orbs everywhere. It was crazy. It was also very dusty.
And also, let's see here. Yasser says, want to be real scared, watch some Turkish movies.
Huh.
It's a good tip.
Okay. I read Turkish coffee grounds.
You know what? Any Korean films have my heart right now in terms of like other films that aren't American, because Korean films are they're so amazing. I've watched like
South Korea has the #1 film industry. It really does. No one believes me. I went to college for screenplay writing, which is why I now run a ghost tour, because that's not a job. And we had to watch a lot of South Korean movies, and they're incredible. And I'm so happy Parasite opened the door for it to be more mainstream. Matt, did you watch Parasite? Did you? Obviously, Aaron, you've seen Parasite.
Oh yeah. It was great.
Yeah, I saw it.
And unsettling, and
I had anxiety. Like
incredible. You had.
I could watch like thrillers and suspense and like scary movies and kind of have a level head about it, but I was just like needed a Xanax watching that movie.
Well, I know that's not like, I know we kind of got off a little bit on the trolley tours, but I mean, I think you can learn this fact about you guys and more on the Madame Morbid trolley tours. You like cinema and you like telling stories. And I want to say thank you guys for hanging out. I'm going to let you guys go.
We have no other plans. I'm just kidding.
You have no other plan. It's just this.
No.
We're going to go 8 hours.
This is the only social interaction I've had in like a month.
I know, and there's a lot of people in the room too, so it's like it was a crowd. We're breaking the social distancing rules across the internets. But
well, thanks a lot, Aaron. This was a lot of fun.
Matt, Allison, thank you guys. I can't wait to do this in person.
Yes.
Look, we're gonna make this happen at Dromedary. We're gonna have our whole paranormal crazy time. I'm gonna let you guys go, and then I'm gonna wrap up with all sorts of housekeeping. But thank you again, guys. Thank you. Be safe out there.
You too.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
All right, guys. Well, I'm just going to wrap things up here. Awesome. Yeah, like Madame Morbid's Trolley Ghost Tour. Those guys are great. I'm so appreciative of them taking their time I would say normally away from their busy schedule, but still it's busy, like, you know, working on things, trying to be creative. I know that they are, staying active and prepping this tour for when everybody can take it. And I'm glad that you guys could join. Before I let you all go tonight, first off, I want to say you guys should probably know by now that I am doing this kind of on my own to keep myself occupied, but also, this is a good way for me to be creative. And let's face it, it's also a good time when you're trying to work. And part of that comes with sponsorship. And we have an awesome sponsorship right now with Dead Run. It's a novel by Mike Maddox. It's available only on Amazon Kindle. And if you run or you die, basically it's a post-apocalyptic novel. And the tale is the lead character wakes up and feels the need to run. And he starts running, and he's running and running and running. And he realizes that if he stops, when people stop, they die. And it's not quite a zombie book, but I would put it in the suspense and horror category, zombie adjacent for certain, and definitely post-apocalyptic. It's a really fun read. I think you guys should check it out. I think you're going to dig it. And I want to thank Dead Run for sponsoring us. As far as I go, look, I mentioned it earlier. I would appreciate it if you would download the Nightmerica podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. We have a new episode dropping tomorrow, and that one is focused on theme parks. And the idea is me, who has worked a lot in the paranormal world for a long time. I'm kind of like have a lot of experiences, but sometimes you could get a little too stuck in your own head. So that's where my co-host Britt comes along. She's new to the paranormal world, but is a fan of it. And we trade stories and tell about creepy stuff, monster stuff, true crime stories, all that good stuff. It's a lot of fun. New episode dropping tomorrow. And my buddy Win is actually telling a story on it about a haunted experience that he had at Universal Orlando Resort in the wizarding world of Harry Potter. I don't want to spoil it. I want you guys to download it. Beyond that, say hi to me on Twitter and Instagram at Aaron Sagers. Just show up and check out aaronsagers.com. And also, like I said, trying to be creative in these days. So, the virtual tip jar is out there. If you guys want to see this kind of content, it's helpful for me. If you're able to, throw a little support. If not, certainly no pressure. I'm going to keep talking. I'm going to keep doing this. But beyond that, look, I'm grateful for you guys for being here every night. And thank you, Stacy. Stacy has been listening to Nightmerica. Listen to them all. Great job. Thank you so much. New episode tomorrow. So there's another one to listen to. And Jack, thank you for sharing the podcast around. I really appreciate it. And there's Wen himself. His story is available in the new episode of Nightmerica. So I appreciate him telling that story. I don't think he's ever told that publicly before. So that's a first. And thank you guys for being here. Be safe. Take care of one another. And tomorrow, I'll tell you now, tomorrow we're going to talk tarot cards. I have a tarot reader that I'm bringing in. She's going to be doing some virtual readings. She is, her name is Nina Josephine. She also is Crystal Howard. She has a couple different names there. One's a stage name, Nina Josephine is. And so we're going to be doing some tarot readings virtually. She's out of Texas, but now lives here in New York City. Very talented. And I'm excited to see how this works out in the virtual space. So be there for that. It's gonna be pretty awesome. So yeah, I know, Dory, it's gonna be a cool time. I hope I see you there for it. And that said, guys, thank you. I'm gonna wrap it up. Hope you have a great night. Be safe and sleep well and stay weird.